Okay, I am live. It is March 2nd, 2025, and we're just working on Salt and Light. So if you're new here or visiting, I'm waiting for Vegas to wake up here. Let's look at what's going on. So I'm working on episode 3 of Salt and Light. We're up to about, we're starting to approach the 14-minute point in the episode, so there's about 10 minutes or so to go. I've been progressing a little more slowly than I would prefer, mainly because I have another animation and cartooning related project I've been working on in cooperation with an AI startup, basically. And so that's been consuming some energy along the path. But all in all, the workflow on the show has evolved from being mostly anchored into Krita with some diversions into Tahoma2D in terms of tools, and Blender, obviously, and then most recently has been pretty much a Blender-centric. I shouldn't say that. It's really been, what it really has been is do the character animation and the color for the characters in Blender, and then bring it into Krita for everything else, actually. So this is what came from Blender. In this case, is there even a... Yeah, there's a little animation of her eyes. I tell you the truth, I may have done... Yeah, actually, that animation of her eyes wasn't even done in Blender. So I think I just brought the static image over. And then for a background, I was a little bit not really sure what to do. I definitely liked the vivid colors and put in the grass in this shot, made it billow in the breeze a bit. But this was really the thing that set it off. I remembered a shot from the Jungle Book that was cited in the book Disney Animation: The Illusion of Life, where there was a shot of Bagheera that had just a plain blue background and just a little bit of foliage poking in the corner, and that foliage just made the shot. It just balanced the composition. So on this shot, I absolutely stole the solution from the Disney folks. So anyway, let's jump back into Blender and see what the heck's going on around here. And I'll take a glance at the chat. Oh, there's Ross. Loads of new shots done. Yeah, it's been going well, man. I mean, I did like 22 seconds yesterday in about 2 hours. It's really, obviously there's all the work associated with, getting the storyboard done in the first place, right? But, that goes pretty quick. I mean, I was just talking to Valerie about this, and the thing I noticed is the thing about storyboarding is, I had never thought about this before until today, but here's the thing. If you take what's fun about the animation process, which is subjugated ultimately to the editing process, right? So this is just as creative as the animation, because you can make a massive difference in the viewer's experience based on how you edit, right? And I do take pride in my skill as an editor. I think I'm pretty good at pacing a story and this sort of business. And storyboarding is powerful because it really combines both. It combines identifying the shot. By the way, what was that hotkey? Was it Alt Middle? Yep, Alt Middle button. Middle mouse button. to so I don't have to grab at the top here. Anyway, but yeah, it combines storytelling, visual storytelling, and editing essentially into one step, one very rapid step, as a matter of fact. I think that's what the attraction is. What the difficulty I had in the past was that when I storyboard something out, and so I've got all of these shots that need to be finished, I would find this process to be drudgery. And I don't know if that's because I really find it to be drudgery, or if it's because I had enough frustrations working in Krita that made it feel like drudgery. So this balance of tools basically has helped me a lot. And it's really, this is the first time since I've been working on this show that I've ever been able to storyboard out a whole long sequence, and in this case all the way to the end of the show, and I didn't have that dissuasive experience of feeling like, oh God, I gotta ink and paint every single one of these, you know. I think another part of it has been the color work, actually. Color and composition, like I was saying about the leaf in the corner, giving more attention to color and balance in the composition has made the Krita part of the process more fun. I like visually what I'm seeing come out, you know what I'm saying? So, anyway, that's been well, everything's a learning process, right? So the last shot I did obviously was this one. And now, the way I've been doing this is taking the whole timeline and just shifting it way to the right, and then every time I get a shot done, I basically say, well, okay, in Blender, let's go Control Home, and then I'm just taking a guess. I'm going to say, let's just go 20 or so frames forward. Well, what is that? 30 to 60, so 30 frames. At 8 frames per second, obviously you're talking about 4 seconds or so. 4 to 5 seconds. Okay, so what do we got? Whoops. Oh, we're coming back to her. I'm gonna have to look at the script to understand that. That's probably just oh, 2 questions. Sorry, Ross, I was ignoring you. What are the genes you've attached? What are the genes you've attached with Salt and Light to? Who are the main demographic? Do you mean in terms of audience? Is that what you're, like, who we're targeting? If that's what you mean, oh, okay, I said Salt and Light too. I'm being stupid here. What are the genes you've attached with Salt and Light? And then 2, who are the main demographic? Can you clarify? Are you referring with the second question? Are you referring to who I'm targeting as an audience? Oh, genre. God, dude, that makes the question mean a whole different. Okay. I'm gonna ask you to answer a question for me before I answer that. And this is one of the this is in normal human discourse, this is a risky question because you rarely get an honest answer from people, because all of a sudden they think about the implications of the question and blah 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 blah. Meaning, the question is this: as specific and personal as you can or are willing to be, can you please tell me, as truthful as you can be, why are you asking me this question? What is it you're really trying to find out here? It's a very important question, and for anybody else that would watch this later, the reason it's an important question because the answer to both of those questions have either been answered many times here before, or it's pretty obvious from watching the show. So that's what I want to get at. What are you really asking here? If I can expand on that question as you think about it, the reason it's an important question is because a genre is a label, So I could speculate, Ross. I could totally speculate here. I could speculate. Well, why would somebody ask me that? Well, they're asking me to present a label that one could then apply to this particular show, and then maybe for them that gives them, okay, yeah, okay, that's exactly what I thought. It was something like that. Okay, so in a sense, we're always when we talk to people we respect, frankly, a lot of times in the area of endeavor and enterprise, we are really asking for clues about what will work. We're really looking for encouragement that the path I want to travel down, that it'll work out for me, that it'll go well. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with wanting that. So, the problem um, with applying those questions to Salt and Light are that, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, Russ, but basically, um, when I initially had the discussion with my distributor about doing a cartoon, the advice and the expectation were very different from the reality. Okay, I guess so people don't get bored, I'll switch screens, or I'll go ahead and let the show play in the background. Um, because the expectation and advice surrounded the idea of a concept that would be targeted mainly to essentially 3 to 8 year olds, I guess, little kids. Okay, so in other words, for Ross with his project, and plus knowing his work, I know his style and this and that and the other. My suspicion is if you want to create a show and it's going to target a demographic, probably most people would be better off to target the demographic that was recommended, not the demographic and genre that I actually pursued. What do I mean by that? Well, Salt and Light clearly is not even slightly a 3 to 8 year old demographic. So I had a choice I had to make, and the choice was: do I follow the advice, which presumably might give me the best chance of having a show that's successful and is embraced by the target audience, or do I stick to my guns in terms of what I really want to do, which is essentially something along the lines of Avatar: The Last Airbender? And what is it about that? Well, what is it about Avatar? Number one, it's an epic story that takes place over a long period of time, where you've got standalone episodes that have good entertainment value, but they fit into a broader whole that's too big of a story for a little kid to really absorb for the most part. I'm not saying kids aren't smart. They understand a lot more than we think they do, but that would be one characteristic. The second would be just the visual style, which you see here. It's kind of like a westernized but largely anime influenced kind of thing. And yeah, and so basically the target demographic then becomes more like 8 to 15 year old as a main target, perhaps, but enough humor or sophistication in the overall underlying story that an adult could enjoy it. And indeed, like I did with my son Kyle, a parent could enjoy the show with their kid. And they each would get different things out of it, perhaps. Like a kid might laugh like crazy at this guy just because of the way he looks. A little kid might. And a 7 or 9 year old might laugh at the disparity between how the guy looks and the way his voice is going to be, because he's not going to have a yeah, I'm a stupid he's not going to have that kind of voice. At least that's what we decided. So so the genre, as far as I know, does not exist, actually. As far as the genre, if I'm going to put a label on it, I don't think it exists. Whatever the genre was that Avatar addressed out there in the world, I don't know if I can think of another Western show that kind of hit the same genre. And that was one of the things about that particular show that made it neat, was that it sort of came out of the blue. It was a little risky for the network because, it hasn't been done a ton. We don't know for sure this is going to work. And then it kind of exploded. Right? So anyway, that's the... So what would the genre be? The genre would be, it's an epic story with fun, or I don't know, what am I trying to say here? It's really hard to actually give it a label. So now to Ross, I say, if you ever want to just, we probably need to do another Zoom call sometime. If you ever want to bat ideas around, I'm happy to, I'm rooting for you. Yeah, and in fact, it's funny because Val and I were just talking about this yesterday. The financial challenge with Salt and Light is that, yes, it does earn enough that for me it's significant enough to justify doing it, but the numbers to scale it and expand the team aren't really there yet. I feel like I need a couple more quarters to find out, to really see that, yes, this is working and it's going to continue earning reasonably well. And then sort of the accrued revenues from the show itself should be what's used to justify scaling up. And I think for most businesses that's pretty good policy. A lot of problems with startups is they try to scale way too soon, and if they're lucky to sort of scam their way into getting venture capital, and most of it gets pissed down the drain, really. They'd be far better off to grow it slowly, and then once it's really standing on its own 2 feet, not only is it possible to scale with pretty good confidence, but also as a target of acquisition in the marketplace, the intellectual property is actually way more valuable because it's got that proven track record. So all these things sort of work together to sort of, hey, Psycho Crazy Animation. All these things kind of work together to steer you toward, a business model that's sufficiently, you want it to be fun. I know you didn't ask this question, by the way, Ross. You had alluded to it once, maybe on Discord or whatever, and as I have said here, frankly, on YouTube, is when it's time to scale this show production, you would be very high on my list of people to talk to. The problem is I don't think the show can afford you, right? At this point. I got numbers from Ed Tadeo back in the day because I was just exploring it, and I'm like, I just can't even begin to afford him. So, and to me, it's not. I don't want to dip into the. Again, nobody's asked for this. Okay, I'm just spitballing here, but I wouldn't want to dive into the savings account to leverage the production and ostensibly accelerate it without a little bit longer earning track record on the one hand, and because generally the process, and I've experienced this with the startup I'm working with. This is why it's been a really good experience for me doing animation in this startup mode that has absolutely nothing to do with Salt and Light or any other entertainment-oriented show. It's for an AI-driven app. But anyway, but that experience has been really good for me because I'm having to deal with a group of people where I don't get to set the agenda. I don't get to decide who the character is, and I do get to influence what they look like, right? But that's what they're leaning on me for, is to come up with those concepts, right? So in that sense, it's been a good experience. The adventure, okay. I think that sums it up pretty well. Adventure drama for tweens. Yeah. You might, I wouldn't want to call it a comedy, even though I try to put funny elements in it. So the only thing I'd modify I might say adventure dramedy for tweens would probably pretty well nail it. But I would never want to give you the impression that that's well, okay, so first of all, while the show earns enough to be significant to me as an individual, it's nothing. I mean, in the entertainment space, it's literally like nothing. It's a grain of sand. It couldn't be less significant, right? It's peanuts, pennies. So, in that sense, no one. So actually, this circles back to what I said earlier. What I would find is once I have half a dozen episodes out there, and it's consistently earning, now how much better of a position is that show in to either spark the interest of some sort of acquisition or partnership or something that allows for scaling it up and potentially much greater earnings. Not just because of the volume of work being done, but also because a partner might come in and have much, much very powerful promotional muscle that they bring to bear so that they just make more people aware of it. All those things, all those considerations work together, and they're all balanced against my lived experience of doing the thing. That's why I had to switch from Krita to Blender more. Not that I've abandoned Krita, obviously, but that change was a really important change for me because I was like, the lived experience of just doing this work is becoming like I'm ready to claw my own eyeballs out and shoot myself in the head because it's not fun. Why the hell am I doing this if it's not going to be fun? That's crazy. And that's going to be true of anything new that you venture into. So when you start to scale it, all of a sudden now you got to deal with people and their opinions and their skill sets. And you have to deal to some degree with the problem of that this is a bit of a hierarchy. Somebody has to make the final decision. All those things come into play. And so none of that's bad. It's just you got to be up for it. You know, you got to be up for what that means. So again, to put a button on it, I cannot, I couldn't even in good conscience say to somebody that what I'm trying to do here with this show is a good idea. Because everything out of the gate said it's completely not what was recommended to me to be the right idea. So the most dangerous thing is to have something that's very modestly successful and say, well, okay, you know, well, this is what the yeah, it's like Val's laughing in the background. She's like that means like now everybody should do that. Everybody should take my advice. That's insanity. And it's really an interesting distinctive about the entertainment space. You can look on YouTube for the interview with Stephen J. Cannell. It's about a 2.5, 3-hour interview over several videos done many years, about 15 years ago. And I love Cannell because he was so focused on the work and just the doing of it. It's why when he got out of network television, he just started writing novels because it's like at the end of the day, I loved writing, man. That's really what I want to do. I never thought of myself as a director or even as a show creator, even though that's what he did. At his core, he was a writer. It was the writing that he loved. And so he just did what he loved. You know? So why do I, ramble on and on about this? Well, because those are really important things you got to consider. You have to consider if you're going to create a show. Like if somebody said to me, I'm going to create a show, and I say, hey, that's great. Rock and roll. Let me know how it goes. And you say, well, should I do what you're doing? Should I do a 24-minute show? I would probably say no, actually. What I probably would say is, well, look, you can be sure, even if your workflow is as tight as it can be, it's going to take you typically, it's going to take me at least, at very best, 2 to 3 months to do an episode, and probably closer to 6. You know what I mean? You're not going to crank out a 24-minute episode in, a month. Ain't going to happen. So one has to ask oneself, well, do I really have the stamina for this? You would not want to look at what I'm doing and go, well, yeah, I'm going to energize myself up and I'm going to talk myself up on this and say I have the energy to do it because Dave has shown that this can be successful. Whoa, stop. This show is not successful. Okay, it is not. It is currently earning reasonably well enough for me as an individual to say it's significant enough to keep working on. But it isn't even, I'm going to send people to the poorhouse if I tell them to, go do what I'm doing. Because number one, they better be up for doing it nonstop for at least a year or two with no reward whatsoever. Remember, Salt and Light was literally released and out there for 2 years before it actually caught. I have no idea why. I literally have no idea why. I'm glad. I'm glad it caught, but I just, so I can't recommend what I'm doing. I would be, I would probably tell somebody, make sure that there is some humor in it, probably, because across the board, it's going to be a safer bet if it makes people laugh. That's important. Number two, on the demographic thing, I didn't do what was recommended because I don't want to. Like, I have no interest in the type of entertainment that 3-year-olds, for example, find funny. Or, now, is there a way to do it that I would enjoy it? Yeah, I'm sure there is. If I applied myself to that problem, I'm sure I could find an angle that would make it work for me. Granted. But the whole idea of creating something that's basically fun for little kids, it just had no appeal to me. It's like I want to do a cartoon, but that's what I don't want to do. Can I do it, and would it be fun? Yes. I could do it, and it would probably be largely fun. But it wasn't my preference. So, and there's the guy from Avatar, right? The cabbage dude. So that's my perspective. I mean, I just, the advice that I do give out vociferously is that if you have an idea, at least give yourself time and room to develop the idea, because in the process of wrestling with the story, wrestling with character designs, wrestling with coming up with a concept that you yourself can get on board with, so that, because that's what will be required to sustain the effort over a long period of time. What will happen is you will learn and discover things in the process of wrestling with it that you literally don't know now and can't know now. And it's only by engaging with it that you will discover what it is you want to do. And that takes a bit of trial and error and experimentation. So if you're in a hurry to have it all figured out tomorrow, you're asking for trouble. That's dangerous. Because it's a big, a really big commitment. Having said that, is there a balance to that perspective that, well, wait a minute, Dave, it's not that big of a commitment. Come on. Yes. Yes. At the end of the day, it is true that if you look at the actual hours that I really spend working on this show, I got to say, over the years I've been doing it, it probably averages about 2 hours a day. It is not a full-time job, and it never has been. So, can you hold down a full-time job and still crank out a show? Yeah, if you give yourself a year or so, maybe even as many as 2 years. Remember, the first 3 episodes of Salt and Light, the first 2 episodes took 3 years to do, remember. That's kind of an important thing to notice. It took 3 years just to release it. And then it took another 2 years before it started to grab. It was earning it'd make like $200 a quarter. Like nothing close to what would have justified the effort in the first place. So you can't really look at it that way. And since you can't, then the obvious question is, well, can I hold down a full-time job and actually do this if this is my dream? The answer is absolutely. Absolutely. You just do your day gig and then give it 2 to 3 hours a day and chip away, man, and you will get there. So, having said that, how would I enter the marketplace? I would not, because remember, you can have content up on YouTube, for example. In fact, I did this. Remember, don't forget, with episodes, I guess both episodes, I was releasing webisodes that you guys could watch that were like 3 to 5 minutes long. So like each sequence of the episode, I was releasing here on YouTube. And there's nothing that says you cannot do that. And then when the time is right, you take it all back down off YouTube, post a trailer, and go do the regular distribution thing, right? Russ says, the animation I do for clients is on the whole for little kids. Yeah, that's the vibe I get. But anything I write to do my own stories is always for late teens and adults. Right. Well, and you would because you've got a you have a kid or kids that are older, right? Don't you? Am I remembering wrong? And so having been through the whole fatherhood thing, that influences your tastes, as far as what you would want to do. 10 years from now, would I like to have essentially would I like to have probably a pretty small team, probably a half a dozen people. Think about 5, 6 people working at different stages and parts of 3 to 5 different properties. Yes, that would be fun. I don't think I'm ready for that now. From a leadership standpoint, I don't think I'm capable. I still have too many uh, anal psycho emotional flaws that work. Remember, I've been in business for myself, essentially by myself, for 30 years, but I've never successfully scaled anything. So from the standpoint of me as a practitioner, that is an important thing for people to notice. I am not a guy that's ever built a large company, or by extension, an organization. The most employees I've ever had at one time is basically 2, and most of the time that I ever was employing people, there was just one, basically an administrative assistant type of person who could do production on certain things, right? Um, so he's 18. Well, so then if you want to create something for your son, then the question, obviously, he's as good a person as me to ask. In fact, to tell you the truth, he's probably a 10 times better person to ask. Because I am completely unaware of what's out there in the pop culture. I don't know what people that age are watching. I literally have no idea. And at this point, that's okay because I'm all wrapped up in just creating the show that, somebody's watching it. So that's good enough for me. But if you want guidance to inform what you tackle, then young people are going to be a way better. They're going to give you good advice. And by the way, when you begin to dive into it and start working out, like I did at the beginning stages, was work out character designs, that type of thing. They will tell you, no matter what their skill set is, they don't have to know anything about character animation. They don't have to know anything about it. Okay, they are a valid person with opinions and tastes. Period. Therefore, oftentimes, if you're missing the mark, especially if you're a skilled practitioner, this is a real danger. You can be completely wildly missing the mark, and somebody with no ability at all comes in and makes an obvious observation about it that reveals a deficiency in it. It could be as simple as they just don't like it. But it tweaks your ego, and then your ego says, well, they don't know diddly about animation, and what do they know? When in point of fact, you really should pay attention, because that visceral sense of, is this cool or is this not cool, is actually the most important thing. If Salt and Light is catching, I think it's because when people watch it, they just feel good watching it. It's a combination of the visuals and the voices and the story and the music and the humor. It's everything working together, and it's a little different for every person, but at the end of the day, it just feels good to watch it. That's the only explanation I have. I think that's what's going on. I saw a similar, with this commercial project that I'm working on, this startup I've mentioned. One of the key things I've learned is that people, when you're in a group, people are looking to you. People are very respectful, actually, very respectful of your ability and your territory. And they're actually very respectful of it. If it ever feels to me like they're stepping over that and expecting too much or whatever, that's always coming, in my experience, that's always coming from me. That's the people pleaser in me that wants to help them and make them happy, but yet what it's going to take to make them happy because of some changes they ask for or whatever is all of a sudden becoming a volume of work that causes my focus to turn to what I'm not doing. In other words, I'm not making progress on Salt and Light because I'm so busy over here working on this stupid project. I wish I'd never gotten involved with it. That type of thing. That is all me. That has nothing to do with them. And in fact, the point I was making in the first place was this: couple different times when I was getting a little bit painted into a corner psychologically, not logistically. This was all me, but creatively, just getting painted into a corner where I'm like, I don't know, this isn't necessarily turning out to be all that fun, maybe. And what I found was the only thing that could make it fun was, well, you know what, to hell with it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do whatever feels good to me. I'm going to entertain myself with this thing. Damn the torpedoes. Hang the consequences. And what happened was every single time I most trusted myself to do what I thought was right, those were the animated elements that they just loved and went crazy over. In other words, what made sense to me from an entertainment value standpoint, turns out actually that's kind of what other people find entertaining too. Now, not everybody will, obviously. But that was something very specific that I learned in the process of that project that is still ongoing, by the way. It's almost, I mean, most of what I have to do is probably 80% done. But yeah, I found that that was the neat thing about working in a group setting, was that you discover, hey, put aside this people pleaser obsession with, needing to be the center of attention and being celebrated for how amazing your talents are. Just put all that ego BS aside and see the people for who they are, which they're just people. They have their skills that are way beyond mine in the AI domain, for example. The one person I'm working with has an incredible pedigree in the world of AI going back decades. And in a climate of mutual respect, it can really be a good experience, So I that's way more than you asked, but to me these things are important because they are ultimately what defines your life and your happiness is your lived experience, and that is all about this here now. In fact, I'll even dovetail into this. Let me look at the script for a minute, and then I'll dovetail into actually what I was journaling about today. It really struck me that in Western culture, we are extremely obsessed with nouns instead of verbs. In other words, it's more significant. Let's pick on Ross and pretend he's got a real ego problem. He doesn't. I know Ross. He doesn't have an ego problem. So we'll pretend he does. If he's that guy, then he's much, much, much more emotionally attached to the idea of somebody saying he's an animator, or even better, he's an excellent animator. When in fact, what he should actually be jizzed about is, well, did I animate today? Did I do the thing that I love doing? And did I do it reasonably well? That's the verb. The verb is, what did you do? Well, you drew. And what you find is when you focus on the verbs, when you focus on action, you realize that all action and all accomplishment is this. It's all at the lowest level. It's the microscopic. It's the putting a mark on the page. You realize that's what people do. That's how everything that gets done gets done. Let me hit undo. By the way, so the reason we love nouns is because a noun is a label, and the label that you put on yourself or someone else then creates a context in which to view them. And that context then informs an expectation. It's an expectation of what they're going to do in the future. This is a very dangerous way to think, because labels don't get shit done. Being CEO doesn't get anything done. Your ideas and your advice may in fact prove that you were justified in being in that position and perhaps having that label. But everything changes all the time. Everything evolves. And so this is, I've said here before, this is actually the fundamental problem with religion. Religion says that based on the past, we have a platform and a framework for living that is perfect past, present, and future. It predicts very well what's going to happen later. So if we take these policy choices or those actions, this is how it's all going to turn out. The problem is that's like literally impossible. You cannot predict. But what we do is we gravitate to labels in order to justify this psycho-emotional trick we play on ourselves that diverts attention away from what actually matters. Well, what actually matters? Well, what actually matters is what did you do today? That's what matters. And that's not a judgment in any way. That's not imposing an expectation that you should have done something today. Not at all. You may read it that way. If you have a fragile ego, you will. If you have a fragile ego and somebody says, well, what'd you do today? That's why I said the question I ask you, why are you asking this question? That's similar. It's a triggering question for most people. People who are not emotionally healthy and secure in themselves and love their life and are making very selfish choices in a good way to honor their own proclivities. That secure person who's found the courage to live that way isn't bothered by a direct pointed question. Well, what did you do today? But if you're fragile and your ego's ruling your life, which I've lived that way most of my life, frankly, I'm happy to be overcoming it. Then when somebody asks you that question, you are immediately, it doesn't literally matter what you did today. No matter what, you'll find a reason to tell yourself a story that you should either be braggadocious about it or you should be ashamed of it, one or the other. And both are ridiculous extremes that, again, are just labels. It's quite ridiculous. It's like, geez, dude, I didn't ask you who you are, and I didn't ask you, like, is it the end of the world today? I just asked you what you did. And people that have been like I've been much of my life, where you've got this sort of ego hang up, you constantly turn mountains into molehills. Other way around. Sorry, reverse that. You constantly make everything the biggest deal in the world. It's crazy. It's no way to live. And anyway, the reason I brought it up is a simple algorithm to remember this principle is this. Focus on verbs, not nouns. Nouns, all the labels that we have in culture, when you give someone a label, say this is what they are, you have already stepped into the pool of self-delusion. You've literally already made the decision to live in La La Land. Because that label is never, under any circumstances, accurate. Now, as a convenient shorthand in culture, is it useful? Yes, of course. What do you do? Well, I'm a doctor. Okay, fine. It's shorthand. That's fine. But if you emotionally put stock in those labels such that they are informing your expectation of either yourself or others, you're potentially in very dangerous territory. Very dangerous territory. And this is what I say it because this is what I've been doing with myself. The only question is not what am I or what's my future looking like. The question is, what did you do today? There's no judgment in it. It's just a question. And then what I do is I look at it and I go, well, I did this and this and this. Okay, are you happy with that? Okay, so now it's a conversation I'm having with myself. It's myself saying to myself, are you happy with that? I'm not judging you. I'm not trying to poke you and trigger you into feeling, now what you're going to do is you're going to look around, you're going to look to the left and look to the right and go, God, what are they trying to get at here? What are you saying I didn't do enough? Right? You're going to immediately go into reaction if you're emotionally egoic and fragile. Parenthetically, in our culture, the people who are the most egoic and the most bombastic, because they're posturing so much, are the people that we often extol the virtues of. And this is almost always misguided. Always. Well, now let's get back to work. Yeah, some writers say don't write for a demographic, write for yourself. Yeah, there's a really big reason for that, Ross, is that you can write for yourself. Like I look at writing as I think it's a really good way to write is to basically build it out. Okay, so you could have a one-liner: boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy, saves the world and re-wins the girl, and they're happy ever after. Okay, that's a one-liner. And then what you do is you just start subdividing that into beats, if you will. And what you wind up with is you just expand it out, and there's a point you can kind of intuitively tell that it's time. Okay, I feel like I've got a pretty complete story going here. I like what I see. And what I see, by the way, inspirationally and emotionally, is much more than what's printed. What's written in those beats. You're not seeing what's written in those beats. You're seeing what they mean and what the story that's going to unfold from it, and that's what excites you, right? That's good. That's a good thing. No problem. But the thing about your comment at 2:40 p.m. is that notice one really, really important detail, Ross, and this is the most important thing I've said today, that I'm saying this just for you. You can write the story that you enjoy, and then you can very easily shoehorn that concept into a genre to better match the demographic. Now, in the case of my most successful film, Healed by Grace, I literally did the opposite of that, but it works both ways. What I did was I took the or the list of characteristics that should go into this movie based on what was selling. That's why your initial question to me is a really bad question, because what I'm doing really is not selling that well. Okay. Okay. But basically I said, the distributor said, here's what's selling. The key one being the lead is a girl and there's horses involved. Okay. And then it's like, okay, so throw in a tragedy of some kind. Kind of keep it light on the spiritual side. Don't go too deep on the beating people over the head with Bibles or something. And then number 5, if there can be a love interest, that would be good too. So based on the marketplace, I then said, okay, now how can I take those elements and put them into a story that I enjoy? And so, yeah, it turns out you can have your cake and eat it too. And I liked the story. I liked it. I felt like it hit the sweet spot. And the hardest thing I ever did, and I made the wrong decision, by the way, was at the time that I had the movie close to done, I felt very strongly that I've got a hit on my hands. And if I would have pushed the point, I could have bought back the rights to the movie. I could have said, you know what, you guys, so far you've paid me $26,000. I know that sounds like peanuts for making a movie. My budget for every movie I made was $36,000. That's the truth. It was a 6-picture deal. So that's not very much money. But the point was, it was still an opportunity to make movies and get them out there. And so my mindset, as I've said here before, every movie I ever made cost me literally almost to the penny, like not exactly, but $8,000 to make. Every single one of them cost me $8,000. All the money went to the actors. I paid them. I never had to pay for a location or props. None of that. I could go into that later, how you accomplish that, because it's actually pretty easy. But, and so there was a point where I could have said to not the distributor, that was later, but the network, I could have said to them, let me give you your $26,000 back. Let's just cancel the deal. I think I've got a winner on my hands, and I want to take the risk of giving you back the money you've already given me and run with it and see what happens. I could have done that. I'm very sure if I would have pushed the point, they would have been like, yeah, because we were friends, It would have been like, dude, if that's what you want to do, rock and roll, good luck. I didn't have the courage to let the money I already had go away and take that risk. And because I didn't do that, that choice cost me at least $200,000. At least. Inciting incident, conflict resolve conflict resolution. Yes. What would you like? So Amar said, what would you like in writing is a whole lot easier. What you would like in writing is a whole lot easier. Hey, Dave. Inciting incident, conflict, resolve, conflict resolution. Right. Yeah, nobody's going to dispute that with AMAR. What I find is generally um, the two best bits of advice for winding up with something that doesn't have holes in it and inconsistencies and whatnot would basically be two ideas that I'm going to put in the comments. Write in reverse and look for I want to say reversals or surprises because that's really the essence of comedy. But let's just state it as opposites. Look for opposites. To a fledgling writer, those are the two best bits of advice I can give. Because everybody knows you got to have sort of a 3-act play. You know, you have the inciting incident with a complication, and we all know that. And you can go a little deeper on it to look at 4-act structure and 7-act structure. There's a lot of ideas out there. If you read Blake Snyder, obviously he hits it pretty well. If you want to make a what they call a high concept Hollywood movie, this is the formula you follow. So those formulas are fine. The hero's journey, it's all good. But in the practice of doing it, sitting down and writing, probably the two best bits of advice are those right there. Write what you like. Will be a lot easier. I actually disagree. If you greatly despise the content that you're writing, then that would be a hindrance. But I'm not sure I agree with you. In fact, Healed by Grace would be an example of the opposite. I subjected myself to finding a way to take the criteria of the marketplace, come up with a concept that I could get on board with, but write the thing according to what ostensibly would sell. And the discipline of doing that turned out to be actually resulted in a pretty good screenplay. So I'm talking about when you sit down at the keyboard and it's time to write, and you're looking for that magic that emerges from your word processor. The two bits would be write in reverse and look for opposite. The reason is it's a method of problem solving. So in other words, you've got a situation with the character, and you know where the story goes from here once this particular situation is resolved, but you don't necessarily know how to resolve the situation. A lot of times what you do is you say, okay, once the situation is resolved, what would the situation look like then? So you kind of get that in your mind, and you say, okay, in order to arrive there, what would have to have happened from the starting point in order to get there? And a lot of times what happens is the answers creatively just smack you in the face. It's like right there. It's so obvious just by thinking of it in reverse. And then the other point, looking for opposites, is a level of nuance that's deeper than that. So let's say you've solved the problem of your scene by writing it in reverse. Okay, and well, that worked out pretty well because now we're at the point where we can solve the problems of the next scene. Well, in the actual writing of that scene, one of the best things you can do is look for opposites, or for most people, a very key point would be whatever is your first idea in how you would resolve this situation, always look deeper, because your first idea is usually pretty on the nose. And so this idea of looking for opposites is actually a key way to overcome that problem. Meaning, if your first idea was that the guy would go left, then when you write it, have him go right. If your first idea was that he hears bad news and all of a sudden he breaks into tears, what if instead he broke into laughter? And what happens is, by playing around with opposites, all of a sudden a plethora of creative ideas just start coming to you that you wouldn't have otherwise. I don't know why this happens. I don't know why it works. I think it works because what you do is you've sort of got walls and barriers set up in your mind based on what you've experienced in the past or what you think will work. And when you challenge those ideas by looking at the opposite, it just opens up creative vistas that you hadn't considered. It's the same way I'm using AI in my show. The way I'm using AI in my show at this point is I'll let AI do a background painting, but then I'll use that background painting not directly in the show, but to spawn a new idea where I add my creativity to what the AI came up with. So it just becomes a creative partner having a dialogue. And because it comes up with something that's a little different than what I ever would have come up with myself, it means that I've got another creative voice in the room that I can bat it around with, and then we wind up actually coming up with something that's pretty clever or fun or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, Amar says, I know it's different for others, but what you're familiar with makes it easier until you're more comfortable with writing to be able to venture outside your comfort zone. Yeah, but I mean, I think a lot of writers, and I think Valerie would certainly argue on my side of this one, would be that the answer to that problem is simply research. It really is. I mean, anybody, you don't need to become an expert on nuclear physics in order to write a movie or a show that has something to do with nuclear reactors. But you need to do your due diligence to kind of bone up on that topic. To tell you the truth, it's probably one of my greatest weaknesses in the past. Across the board, I would say that I would have benefited in my screenplay writing to do more research. Not just about the logistics of what goes on in the show, but also just things about people, and personalities and where they come from. There's a lot of things about, I think I wrote too much just out of my own experience early on, and somewhat regret that. Okay, so now we've got a few more people showing up here on the live stream, so I don't want to just lecture all day, so we'll keep talking. We'll keep talking, but just I'm just scanning through the show right now, just so people that are new kind of see what's been going on. We're just cranking through episode 3 of Salt and Light, and the last shot I did was actually this one, and then this is actually just a slight retread of this shot in order to get a line of dialogue in there. And so with that, I need to look at the script because I actually don't know what happens next. Okay, it is disputable and debatable. Hey, Tom, doing art. Okay, yeah, it's disputable whether this shot of Tianara actually even belongs in here. Let me look at what I've got in the storyboard after this, because I don't want to lose my continuity between the storyboard and the script. So I just want to make sure I'm on track here. Okay, we could cheat. We might as well cheat just to make it fun. But that probably means going to Krita. Okay, so I am going to say that having Tianara in there right now is not horrible because she is the one they're looking for. So why don't we take this shot and repurpose it very briefly and have her turn towards, well, hold on, let me think here. Hold on, I got to check something now. I got to go back and make sure I've got these guys positioned. Oh, okay. Tianara, this is a dyslexia moment. Tianara has the boys to her right. So actually Mel would be over here. I actually thought about putting his shoulder in here. But, okay. Okay, so now I know what to do. Yeah, let's go back to this shot. I don't mind doing the color over again because it'll be an opportunity to demonstrate how I've been doing color in Blender using palettes. So we'll run with that. Okay, by the way, just to be crystal clear, earlier I noticed what appears perhaps to be a disaster in this Blender file. And I know why it happened. But you'll notice all the way through here, all the color has been turned black. That's really bad, but not really. And the reason it's not too bad is because all these shots have already made their way into Krita and the show, so the color's not gone. But in terms of having it appropriately represented in the Blender file, I think I wrecked it. And I think I destroyed it by changing the whole palette thing, which is quite beneficial. Might have bit me in the butt here. I'm not going to cry about it. There's worse things that could happen. And so if we take off the fills here, we're not seeing the palette colors. What we're seeing is the material. And I think there was something I did earlier, just to put a button on this. I did something earlier that involved assigning stuff to the vertex color material, and I think I broke the link between the vertex colors and the palette colors, or between the material and the palette colors. Okay, so sounds tragic. It's not that big of a deal. In fact, let's put it this way. If I'm willing to eschew the like 1 day's work, I might be able to get it back from a backup, and just be. So I'm not going to sweat it at this point. I'll just do a quick look on the other screen. So everybody be patient for a minute. I want to look at my backups and see if maybe there's actually a possibility of recovering this. If there's not, I'm just going to accept my losses and not sweat it too much. So on the other screen, I am looking for the episode 3 Blender file to see if actually the Blender backup file is from a day earlier. I'm just not really sure. So forgive me for being very boring right now, but it wouldn't be the worst thing ever to find out. Yeah, I have to look at this. 390. Well, somebody's calling me. Hey, Matthew, I'm live streaming right now. Can I get back with you?
Oh, sorry.
Are you down with the? Are we doing a chat tonight? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm right in the middle of the process here, so I'll just catch up with you later. All right, love you. Have fun. See ya. That was my very good boy, the older boy, not the younger boy. Okay, so it looks like maybe I'm going to take a radical step here, run a second instance of Blender. What's really kind of weird is, okay, so that's, yeah, 390/390. So what's the date today? Okay, it's March 2nd. So we do have a backup. This is probably not going to work, but I'm going to give it a try. So let's just drop this blend one file. Okay. And as luck would have it, at the very moment I'm trying to do this, the Windows Explorer seems to be acting silly. Okay. Okay, apparently you cannot load a blend file, a blend one file. Okay, so I'm going to rename this. I'm just going to rename this 3-90 backup. Okay, so actually I will tell you that what this does highlight for me is that it would have probably been better, as I've been going along here, to put the Blender files each in their own scenes the way I do with Krita. But okay, we're going to open this. and see what happens. If all the color's back, then I'll just jump to this and resave it. No big panic. So is anyone else out there? No one's out there freaking out about losing a bunch of work. Nope, nobody cares. Nobody cares. That's good. Okay. Simple question. This is out of sync, so that's interesting. Oh, it's all dead here too, so never mind. I'm not going to sweat it. If I have to do a little extra coloring for a bit, that's no big deal. And frankly, there's been plenty of circumstances where as often as not it would be just as good to do the color in Krita anyway. So anyway, so here's what I'm saying. This is the way she looked at the end of the last shot. And what do I want to do with her? I think I'm just going to have her pause for a moment and boom, right there. I'm going to just shift this. Let's just go into edit mode. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to move these this way, but okay. G key. I want to be using median point. Like I said, I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll give it a try. Okay, that we don't want. Okay, stop everything. I guess it's not the end of the world that we have a keyframe everywhere, but I need to isolate the lines layer. There we go. All right, link. Go. You can see we've got a stray point there. Okay, so yeah, and if she's going to do that, then obviously, like any normal human being, let me hit the G key to just insert a keyframe. Then what I'm going to do is grab this as well, link, actually this and this, L for select linked, get rid of those points. Well, okay, that didn't quite work out as well as I thought. Kill the strokes. B key, not B key, D key. This is Blender, you fool. I'm just putting in a blank. And by the way, stop everything. I am using vertex colors right now. I'm using the wrong material. So let's just back up as many little steps as we need to. Okay. And let's not make excuses. Let's just fix it. Okay. So just putting in a blank. And then, yeah. And by the way, this, gee, you think we could maybe finish her eyebrows there? Okay. So now, when Luca talks, so what we're doing is we're just inserting a shot where Luca starts talking. I've been doing this more where I'm letting some of the dialogue, kind of anime style, happen off screen. And so let's do it this way. Let's go, actually DE, let's do the twist thing. Come on, baby, let's do the twist. And that's pretty much the gist of it. Let me make sure the motion looks good. Okay, and so now it's a timing problem. Blink, blump. Yeah, I mean, that's probably okay. That's probably okay. I'm thinking they should just flow together. So we've got 1, 2, 3. At 8 frames per second, any more than that, you're probably asking for trouble. But let's go D key, Control Shift E, and see how it feels. Yeah, I mean, it feels a little slow to me. So let's get rid of that key and just accelerate a little bit. Blink. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, looking good. All right, save our work, and let's get the color in, and then we'll jump over to Krita. And by the way, this is stop right about there. So 330 to 350, probably that works. Control end. And okay, so now insofar as color goes, normally I've been turning off the shadow layers. Invariably what seems to happen is it turns out I have rogue keyframes from an earlier sequence that happened back here that I can't physically see because of the masking. And then when I go to start putting in the color, all of a sudden I have weird anomalies happening with the fill operations because there's actually grease pencil strokes on the screen that I can't actually see. Okay, so let's go to the fills layer, and we'll actually insert a blank. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Insert a blank keyframe. I key. I always want to hit insert instead of I. Okay, now how are you going to do the color? Like so. In the fills layer, I go to the vertex color material, and I switch to vertex color mode. And then I pull up the palette for the person I'm working with, which in this case, of course, is TNR. Okay. So now, the only disadvantage of palettes, and it is kind of a big one actually, is that as far as I know, there is no way to have labels on these. If you could mouse over them and even have it pop up. Does anybody know about that? Tom, you're smart. What do you think? Is there a way to tell Blender to change this label? Let's find out. Is there a way to change this? That's a sorting thing. Yeah, I don't want to sort them. That would be cool, even if it was just a pop-up like that. I mean, it's kind of stupid that it says color. Obviously, it would be way more helpful if you could assign it a description, but that alone would make the palettes more useful, in my opinion. So, like I said, if anybody knows, say the word, friends. Okay, so her skin is obviously this color, so let's just get rocking here. And okay, that's interesting. Okay, what is going on? I'm missing something. Yeah, okay, we'll do. Thanks, Tom. But I'm on a path at the moment here. Okay, I just filled that in and it all went black. It all went to the material. So it could be that whatever's going wrong here is, if I can solve it here, maybe it'll solve the stuff from before as well. So I'm in vertex color mode. Is it because? No. I mean, it's in stroke and fill mode, but that shouldn't matter if the material is only doing fills, right? So I selected the color. Oh, okay. Now there's one thing. That's true with Blender across the board with palettes. Is whenever you click on a color in a palette, you make sure it actually changes up here. Right there, it just didn't. It just did it again. Okay, but this is weird. What am I missing? Why is that not showing? Because this is obviously the mix factor. Oh, right there, you idiot. Dave, you're stupid. Okay, I'm stupid, guys. I'm sorry. Totally forgot this little detail. You have to be in one of the two advanced shading modes to see the vertex color. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot that. So everything's probably fine. Yep. Oh my goodness, I am a fool. I am a fool. Okay, so I did bake basically shading into this color, so I'm using that for her neck. But let's just do this the kind of the assembly line way. Okay, so we'll go. Actually, we need to go here. Now, if I just click that, is that going to give me a keyframe? Yep. Okay, cool. keyframe. Ah, I said that's what I was talking about when I was talking about the anomalies from the shadow layers. What's going on here? Why is it there when I put in a, thought I put in a blank keyframe? Okay, just so anybody who's confused, so you're like, what is that, right? Okay, first thing let's do is let's remove the fill. Okay, we can't. I mean, we can, but never mind. This is one of those things you really don't want to be trying to explain in real time. The short answer is that Blender's undo system is exhaustive, and that's a good thing. But what it means is every little move you make is folded into the undo system, so I can't just undo the fill. Well, let's try. So let's just keep hitting undo, 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 undo. There it is. Okay. Yeah, I had to go back 5 steps to get rid of that. Okay. So now what is confusing is that the shadow layer is showing through. So if we go here and delete this keyframe for now, okay, we see the problem. So where is this problem? It's in the shadows layer, not the shadow 2 layer. Okay? That means when I went here, I must have duplicated the keyframe or something. I'm going to delete that keyframe and I insert a blank keyframe. Okay, that solved the problem. Okay, oh well, I thought it solved the problem. Oh, well of course. Obviously that should be gone too. All right. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. So yes, we are giving ourselves way more work to do here than strictly necessary. So let's cheat. I'm going to grab all these frames and go into multi-view mode. Why? Well, because I suspect that it's going to make everything kind of a lot faster. Okay, what was her, I believe that's her hair color. So we'll pick a place that seems to fold in all of the frames. Pretty cool, huh? That's what multi-frame's for. Okay, let's go here. I can live with that. Yeah, I guess I can't live with it. That's going to be a little problematic. So, yeah, it's because of that right there. That's too bad. So what I'm going to do is grab this color, go like that, and look at that. Okay, so now, honestly, in this case, the best way to address this, the correct way to address it, would be to get rid of that problem. Okay? And then I could go into edit mode and just extend that line. And obviously that solves that. The problem is it's going to be that way on every single frame. And it does actually look like multi-frame did not do the coloring like I thought it did back here. And why is her flesh tone the wrong color there? Guys, I may be wasting a lot of time here trying to save time. Isn't that the way it goes? Okay. So anyway, the actual real world best way to solve this is to solve it the hard way, the slow way, which is basically to just do this. Just put in a mark on every frame. Oh, come on. Stop. How did that just happen? boy, that is definitely a bug. Not a deal breaker bug, but boy, it's a bug. You guys know what I'm talking about. Blender, at least in 2.9.3, if you click on a palette, make sure the color actually changed, because it fails like a lot. Majorly a lot. Okay, boom. And seriously, dude, seriously, that's what you're gonna do? That's insane. I'm having to use some very aggressive line extension here. That's for sure. Okay, this should be a little more manageable. Oops, I left one frame out, didn't I? Poof. Ah, see what it just did? Look at that. Same thing again. Never ever trust that the color will actually change in Blender when you switch palette colors. It fails. God, I swear, I'd say it fails pretty much as often as it succeeds, actually. Not the end of the world, but something to be aware of. Okay, what do we got? Yep, and we just need to deal with her eyes. Okay, so we're going to go eyes. Let's switch back to the marker or pencil, whatever you want to call it. By the way, probably wouldn't be the worst idea to just double check these. Okay, yeah, and this is wrong, obviously. So, boop, boop. Come on. Come on. And it changes it to gray. Okay. Well, I just committed the same sin I told you guys not to commit. So remember, always click your colors at least twice, because they won't change. Okay. So I'm going to work kind of in reverse here. Stop everything. Stop everything. What just happened? Number one, the color didn't change. That would kind of explain it, and I've clicked it 3 times now. Not cool. Not cool at all. But not the end of the world either. So. Boom, ba doo 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 doo. So what's everybody got going? Oh, shift is modifier keys. Okay, I got to come back to that, don't I, Tom? Oops. Okay, that was sloppy as heck. Time is it? 3:25. Yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap up soon. I would like to get this shot done, though. But if I don't, I don't. Okay, so boom, boom, 2 clicks, just to be safe. Actually, let's go ahead and. Nah, it's probably okay. Wait a second. Okay, that's weird. That is weird. I'm gonna have to think about that one, because we had the flesh tone a moment ago. I'm sorry. Restate that. I had the green a moment ago when I used the pencil. Look, there it is. When I switch to this, oh, it appears that what's going on here. Okay. It appears that switching tools, each tool remembers its last vertex color is what looks like is going on. I can work with that. I wonder if changing this to only fill would, let me see. Ah, it does. Yes. This is set to both stroke and fill. So they each actually have different parameters. Wow, I did not know that. Shows what I know, which ain't much, apparently. Why would this material, what the hell is the secondary? Does anybody know? Awkward Penguin, do you know? It's going good. What does Blender mean by secondary color? What is that? I've never noticed it before or thought about it. I always just assumed probably this is the stroke and this is the fill, is what I assumed. There's something weird about that one. I'm not sure about that. I need to investigate and find out what's cooking. Okay, that's working. So, boom, 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 boom. Gotta do a little extra fill operation here. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm super zoomed in right now. That is problematic though, so I need to do it the hard way. Unfortunately. If it's like other apps, it depends on the current tool in use. Yeah, I just didn't realize that the I did not realize that every tool here on the toolbar has different settings, and probably what was causing my problem of being on the wrong color was actually switching between tools. I wonder if there is an option to keep them in sync better. Nope, that's not going to work. Phooey. Mm-hmm. Like I said, no big deal. That's fine. Close enough for rock and roll. Okay, and this is the bindi. Okay, let's save our work. Looks like we've got some shaded areas here that didn't catch the first time around. And then I'll show you guys. Okay, so now you're in fill check mode, so to speak, and you're going, well, I still have all these flaws, and I'm like, well, yeah, but once this gets over into Krita and everything, you probably won't see them. Yeah, but it bugs me anyway, you say. Okay, here's what you do. Go into multi-frame mode. So all these are selected, but make sure this is selected too. Draw strokes on back. Grab a neutral-ish, dark-ish color, and just go like that. Okay. So now whatever it just did, it did behind all the other strokes and fills. And what it did, therefore, is took this dark skin color, and every stray pixel throughout is now filled with that dark color. And obviously you can't see it. It's all good. So save that. Okay. So how do we go from here? Well, normally what I've been doing is I've been checking the RAM disk. So I go to the RAM disk, and that's in my favorites. So we'll go favorites, RAM disk, and just select whatever's in the RAM disk and, whoops, delete it. I hit the X key because that's the hotkey for Blender. Then what I do is whatever's set up to go in Blender, I just hit Control F12 and I just render it out. So now the rendered images show up on the RAM disk. And then what I can do is, I don't need to do this. I need to go back to that shot right there. And all we're going to do is take this paint layer, delete it, and then we're going to take File, Import Animation Frames, and we're just going to go to the RAM disk. Where are you, RAM disk? Boop. Bring them all in. Boop. Okay. And this could be, I didn't do a good job of labeling my layers here, did I? We do have one major issue right there. Let's see if that's throughout. Ah, yes. That right there. Okay, I want to go back. Probably a good example of where multi-frame is a little risky. It's a little risky, friends. I'm gonna just start hitting undo. There's multi-frame mode. Okay. Yes. Now you can see the artifacts again. So I'm gonna refix this. Just to be very clear, multi-frame is risky because if something's a little out of alignment, you can wind up painting something you didn't mean to paint. So is it worth it to spend the entire 30 seconds that it's going to take to make sure this is all correct? Yeah, one frame at a time, no problem. 30 seconds well spent, if that. Okay. Re-render, Control F12. I know there's a little stray hair there, but come on, people have stray hairs, right? Go back here, take this layer, delete it, file, just redo it, import animation frames, no big deal. Boom, 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 done. Okay, and now we'll take Tianara, put her down here, and we need to relabel this the correct scene. This is not Q, this would be R. No, PQR, yeah. Sorry. This would be R. So we're going to save as episode 3, new folder, 03-90-R. Go in there. R. Okay. And then in the render settings, and there are a couple things we're going to have to change, by the way. But let's just change this to R. I know this is niggly detail work, but if you have a big project like this, you really need to give some attention to file naming and all that sort of stuff, or you will regret it later. Okay, and by the way, notice we do not have any shadows to speak of on her, and I am pretty sure there were some. Yes, that's what we had on the previous shot. So let me just look at that for a second. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to redo the shadows here in Krita, no big deal. Okay, so we go back to frame 1, insert a blank keyframe, and then let's just grab the old John Buscema / Conan brush. And I don't usually do it this way, but I guess it's no harm, no foul. Okay, isolate the layer, hit the F key and fill it. Boom. Okay, so now we can take this, probably bring this down to about something like that. B key, we can touch it up. And then right downstream here. Okay, so that is all duplicate. So just for kicks and giggles, I'm going to delete all those frames since they're duplicates. Okay. So there's the first actual move. A key, in this case, it's such a tiny move, I'm just going to use I'm not going to use liquefy, I'm just going to turn it. Stretch that. That's not going to work. Strike what I just said. I actually am going to use liquefy now because I got a mistake that I need to correct. So boop, 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 boop. Cool. Good. All right. And now a free transform. Let me just check that. That's actually not too bad, other than I need to, once again, did I just lose my change? I think I did. Nope, I didn't. Okay. So let's go here. This probably should be more like that. Come on, come on. I'm just going to do that. Is that it? And of course, Krita keeps resetting the size to the, I don't even know what to call it actually. Is it resetting it to the quote-unquote prior size? Okay, and obviously we have a extra keyframe probably because I started tweaking it on the wrong frame, which I've been known to do a few times. Okay. So it does appear if you change it this way by moving the slider, then Krita remembers. So bear that in mind, friends. Bear that in mind. Okay, I'm being more meticulous with the shadow edge here. Why? Well, because this is a hold frame. Doesn't matter through here. It all moves by too fast. But once she settles, you want to make sure it looks right. Okay, so now, why? Okay, I have to stop for a minute. I'm actually a little bit, shall we say, nonplussed here, because I inadvertently deleted a bunch of keyframes I didn't mean to, largely because of what I said. Because these layers were not labeled, I deleted frames out of the wrong layer. And in point of fact, yeah, I'm actually just double checking to make sure I even put the shadows on the shadow layer. Okay. So this is a dumb problem to have, but it is a problem, and I know how to solve it. Here's how we solve it. This shot was based on 90N. So what we're going to do is eliminate this layer entirely. File, open recent. There's N. There's the layer we're looking for. I'm going to copy this layer and just go back to here and paste it in. Now, to be accurate, it was supposed to be there. Okay, that's it. Didn't know you could do that, did you? Okay, so the only problem with this is I'm totally taking a chance here by doing this, because I have no idea. I mean, yeah, I don't think so. I'm going to hit undo. Probably my best choice is to do something like this. First of all, we'll see how that looks. So that's at frame 15. Okay. And I'm going to reverse those. Here's hoping. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. There's a little bit of a weird hiccup there, but okay, so what did we have? How many frames did we say this was going to be? 16 or something? 2 seconds is probably enough, but to be safe, we'll make it 24. 3 seconds, probably a good working average. 24, boom, and we will and by the way, I should definitely close this. I don't want to get confused and I'll be sitting here working in the wrong Krita file and not even realize it. Okay, so now this is a stupid problem to have. I guess I could take this and sneak it in there and hope for the best. There we go. Okay, render that. RRR, I'm just making sure all the numbering is correct. And then we will jump over to Vegas. And we're almost done. This is going to be 390R. Open the sequence. It's at 8 frames per second. Oh no. Okay, cancel, cancel, cancel. Well, I've said this repeatedly here, you guys, so now you can see that when I say these things, I'm not lying. I've said repeatedly here, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, that I literally never, ever do anything right the first time. I'm serious. It's my life story. everything I do I have to do twice, at least twice. And that's okay. I've kind of gotten used to it. But like what I just did there was just a totally dumb mistake. I won't even explain what it is I did because it's so dumb. It's just silly. Okay, so that's it. That's that. We got this going on. Okay, yeah, so she hears Luca, and we have a problem. As you can see, it's probably brutally obvious to you because you're smart people. And so I have to go to here. And Krita, of course, did not pin Tianara to the timeline because Krita never pins anything to the timeline unless you don't want it to. Okay, so there's the final frame. All of these are duplicates, right? So we get rid of that. Then we go to here. Do the shadows matter? Yeah, they matter. Okay, B key. I'm hitting the B key. What's going on? There we go. And on the hold frame, you know, let's get it right. That needs to be turned off. See, there's what I'm talking about. Right there. Mistake. I'm adjusting the color, and I didn't turn off the layers that change the color. You can't do that. You can't do that. Okay, that's it for me, guys. I have completed my work for now, and I'm going to hang out with my woman. And as you guys know, I wish I could stay longer because we got 7 people watching. Hey, Chizyapo. If I may be on later tonight, we'll see. So, all right. As I always say, there will be more later. Yep, see ya.